Yo, what is up you guys? So in today's video we're going to talk about how to get our main synths and stacks and layers to sound a little less harsh. So the reason why things can sound harsh is because there's a lot of high frequencies built up and a lot of noise. So we need noise so that our music has presence, but if there's too much of it, it can sound very hissy and kind of bad. So I'll show you kind of something I like to do, some kind of tricks that I use on my groups of like layers and stuff to get them to sound nice. So let's get started. So real fast I'll play you an example of a part that started off as being really hissy and really kind of very noisy and now sounds actually kind of nice. So if I could just find the part, it's right here. Let's just play it from here. So that's the part right there, and before when I started it, it kind of sounded super hissy. So if I take off my, let me just close some of this stuff down so you don't get confused what's what. This is basically the rack that I've saved for these kind of groups that always saves my life. So yeah, a little bit of kickstart again just to get it out of the way, the kicks, more power to the kicks. Then I use a Maserati harmonics plugin. So I think I even use a setting, but you know, I always tweak it anyways, and right now I have the wet almost like all the way kind of around 37-ish, so you know, I do bring it down and I do kind of play around with settings, and you have to always kind of feel what's right. So if you don't have this, again, you can just kind of look into saturators and brighteners and some EQing and stuff. This kind of just does some of that kind of stuff, and I just like the way it sounds, especially on synths. So if I, you know, took this out, you can kind of hear the difference. So you can kind of get an idea of what that does. In some ways it makes it sound a little bit rougher and a little edgier and like harsh even, and that's kind of funny because that's a little bit what we're trying to avoid, but because I'm going to come back later and do some cutting, I know I can add that in because it just makes some things brighter in the way that I need it to be. Okay, so now for the next plugin in the rack. So what I have next is probably the most important part of the whole entire rack and the group itself is this kind of channel strip plugin, which is really great. This is made by Variety of Sound. I've talked about this before in my plugin hunt videos. I'll link down that playlist if you want to just watch some of those, but I'll tell you about this right now. This is a really good plugin, just so top shelf. It's really, really good. So I use this to cut out a lot of like high frequency. So I do a low pass in on this, a little bit of high pass in. I don't want to take out too much low end, and I don't really mess around with the EQs too much. But you know, depending on the layers and stuff, I'll change all this. But basically, what always kind of stays the same is how much or what frequency, more importantly, I start low passing, and you know, then there's the air here, which actually comes in later on, but we're not going to use it on this rack, but in our bus. So some other things I do with this is I saturate the overall group, and I add some gain here to make it a little louder, but you know, of course, still fitting in. Next after that is a little bit mid side. So just making the mid a little bit more powerful, a little bit on the sides, and sausage fattener just to limit, not doing anything else, just limiting. And so now let's go to the bus I was talking about. So now we just have on the bus the channel strip again, but now we're going to use it for air. So we kind of have similar settings here going on, a lot more saturation in this one because it's a send, so we can kind of process it a little bit heavier and just mix it in little by little. So here we're going to add air, and that's going to start around 12K, so that's just like really bright presence type air. And let's see if we can play this just by itself so you can hear this. It might be really quiet, so I'll try to bring it up. So that's what that sounds like. So you know, when I do that, I'm only sending a few things actually to the send itself. I'm not sending everything or the whole group all together. I'm just picking like some stuff like the melody, like a layer for that, and maybe one chord layer, and that's really it. I'm not trying to, send the whole thing, because I just want the things that have the brightest, nicest elements, the things that can sound very atmospheric when they have presence. So let's kind of listen to it without the send, so you can just hear that now. So I'm still in the process of mixing this track, so maybe I have a little bit too much bright from this bus, but it's okay. I think for the most part I've avoided the really tough part of making everything way too harsh. And so just basically to recap, what I like to do on these kind of things is I like to start low passing around a certain frequency above 5K, but kind of underneath 12K, because I know I'm going to introduce air later on through a send at 12K or so. And so by cutting, that's the first thing we do, and then we saturate a little bit, and then the second thing we do is just use a send, pick out some of the most important kind of high frequency layers, and then mix that back in through a kind of very similar channel strip type plugin. So thanks guys for watching, and of course, late.